It is finally time for the video that you have all been waiting for about Age of Empires Mobile. And that is, how does this game compare to Rise of Kingdoms? Today, we're going to break down these two games, how they compare, and what you might like about both. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a very special video from your very own Chappy Gaming. Today we are going to be playing two of my favorite games, and I'm going to be comparing the two to give you some insights into what makes each game unique and special, and what you might like about both of them. So, first things first, I'm sure many of you are not familiar with Age of Empires Mobile yet, and it just launched on October 17th, so you may not have gotten your hands on it. If you want to, you can use the link in my description and go check it out. But today I'm going to be talking about how this new game compares to a game we all know and love, and that is Rise of Kingdoms. Now, I'm speaking on this as a player who's played Rise of Kingdoms for way too many years now. I'm coming up on 2,000 days in the game, and I feel like there's a lot of questions that people have about Age of Empires Mobile, and there's a lot of preconceptions that people have because it's a new game. So let's actually break down the two different games and talk about some of the things that I like about both. So let's start with Rise of Kingdoms. Rise of Kingdoms has been around for a very long time. And one thing that makes Rise of Kingdoms incredibly unique is the graphical styling in it. And I don't think anyone could ever dispute it. I think Rise of Kingdoms has great graphical styling that really sets it apart from other games in the genre. The other thing is, Rise of Kingdoms continues to innovate over time, and that has really kept this game exciting, it's kept it interesting. But Age of Empires Mobile also has some really interesting things that set it apart from Rise of Kingdoms. The first of which that we're going to talk about is actually going to be technology. And what I mean by that is, in Rise of Kingdoms, when you start the game and you go to the academy, this is your main way of investing in your technology. And you'll notice that this is split primarily between economic technology and military technology. And what you'll notice with Age of Empires Mobile is, here we are, we're in my city over here. We have a university, much like the academy. We can upgrade the structure, same as in Rise of Kingdoms. And we also have a military and economy technology. Now, this seems similar, and there are dependencies in both of these technology trees. But what's interesting is, Age of Empires Mobile has a different mechanic here called villagers. And villagers are something that you need for houses. You need a certain number of houses in order to get these villagers. But what's interesting about this is these villagers can actually increase or decrease the production of your mills. Now, Rise of Kingdoms also has mills. If we go over here, you can see we have our lumber mill, our food mill, our gold mill, our stone mill. And you still have a lot of the same resources here, right? You still have wood, food, stone, and gold. So that's pretty consistent across both games. But these villagers allow you to invest in each resource depending upon how much you need it. And you notice you do have a finite number of villagers depending upon your housing. Now, generally, this is an indicator that Age of Empires Mobile may have more complex features than Rise of Kingdoms, because the villagers mechanic is brand new, and everything else that we've seen so far is mostly at parity. So it may take a little bit of time, if you're just getting started with Age of Empires, to figure out how this game is actually going to work. And that's a theme that we see throughout the game. And to be honest, I think that it will give it a lot more longevity. And it also makes it so there is a really interesting middle tier in this game. Something that I feel Rise of Kingdoms could do a little bit better with. Today in Rise of Kingdoms, you're either a newbie and you're starting the game, in which case you need to get up to T4, right, in order to become viable in the slightest, or you're a Season of Conquest player who has T5 and lots of max commanders. Based on my experience so far in Age of Empires, I do have to say I think there is a much more robust middle tier. Now, the reason that there's a much more robust middle tier also comes from the fact that we have a much higher level scaling in this game. What do I mean by that? Well, in Rise of Kingdoms, there are only 5 tiers of units, which I think is perfect for Rise of Kingdoms, for the record. I would not change it. However, in this game, Age of Empires, you actually have 7 tiers of units. So if you come all the way over here, you'll notice we have T7, which is pretty crazy. But what this means is that for most players, it's going to take you a very long time to get to that point. And that also means that it could be very expensive from a resource and a speed up and a time perspective. So there is a much more robust middle tier of the game where most players are probably going to be running T4 and T5, but they're not going to be all the way up to T7 unless they're major whales. So that's really unique and interesting about Age of Empires Mobile. And I do think it makes it very well differentiated from Rise of Kingdoms. Now, this kind of level scaling does exist throughout the rest of the game as well. In Rise of Kingdoms, you have a cap on your buildings of level 25, which is great. I think for Rise of Kingdoms, it makes sense, right? Because the goal is to get to level 25 as soon as possible and then go from there. You'll notice my academy is 25, my city hall is 25, and there are much fewer buildings, I feel, to actually upgrade in Rise of Kingdoms to get to that point. You have your city hall, you've got your training centers, and that's really the main things you got to focus on. You have your hospitals, but only one of these actually matters, your alliance center. So a lot of the mechanics are actually pretty similar between the two games. However, in Age of Empires Mobile, your building cap, I believe, is up to level 30. So we can actually come in here and see, if you go all the way down for this building, yep, there it is, level 30. So this does make a difference in the game, because if you have to upgrade more things, it is A, going to take you longer to do that, and B, it's going to be more expensive to do that. So that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind. Now, another thing that makes these games a little bit different is actually going to be the units that you have in this game. So one of the things that you'll notice is in Rise of Kingdoms, you have 3 main unit types in a rock, paper, scissors format. And that is crossbowmen, right? Archers, siege, cavalry, and infantry. Now, the way it works in Rise of Kingdoms is archers counter infantry, infantry counter cavalry, and cavalry counter archers. So you really do have a rock, paper, scissors mechanic there. In Age of Empires Mobile, it's a little bit different. In Age of Empires Mobile, we have a slightly different mechanic where it goes by 4 ways. In that infantry counters pikemen, archers counter infantry, cavalry counters archers, and pikemen counter cavalry. So you have a 4-way cycle, which actually makes it so every unit in this game is much more important. Whereas in Rise of Kingdoms, you really only need to have commanders for those main 3 units, archers, cavalry, and infantry. So what does that mean? Well, from a tactical perspective, this does mean that Age of Empires could be more expensive because you have to invest in those 4 commanders. But it also means that there's much more diversity of playing, and there's much more diversity of playstyle than you would typically get in Rise of Kingdoms. And to counter that, and to balance that, you get a lot more legendary commanders in Age of Empires Mobile than you do in Rise of Kingdoms. I'm just scrolling through right now, but you can see already, all of these gold commanders right here are all legendary commanders available as soon as you load up the game for the first time. Now, this is pretty substantial compared to Rise of Kingdoms, especially when you first boot up the game. In Rise of Kingdoms, you have many commanders that are locked behind Season of Conquest, which requires you to play the game for, I believe, 180 days at least. Whereas in Age of Empires Mobile, you do get tossed more into the deep end to fend for yourself and go through with these commanders. Now, much like Rise of Kingdoms, when you do unlock a commander, there are bundles that are going to pop up to help you, called Hero Growth. This is a $10 bundle that is very similar to Writer of History, which we're all familiar with today in Rise of Kingdoms, and you can get these legendary Universal Hero Medals. Let's talk about the hero upgrade mechanics for a second, because these two games have very different formats. So let's start with Rise of Kingdoms, because I think it's more straightforward and easier to understand if you're new to this genre. In Rise of Kingdoms, there are 2 main things you need to upgrade for your commanders. There's going to be your talents, and there are going to be your skills. So let's pick a commander that I haven't maxed here and go through how that works. Your talents work such that you have a talent tree here, and you can get, I believe it's up to 60 points based on levels, but it's probably more in terms of talent points. And you can pick one of 3 trees to work on. Now, all of these do have dependencies, right? You can't just pick the highest level within the talent tree, but you do have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you're going to go about leveling up this commander. In order to level up your commanders, you simply need these XP tomes. And to level up your skills, you only need commander heads to do so, right? These are the same as those coins that we were talking about for Age of Empires Mobile. Now, to max a commander in Rise of Kingdoms, you need about 690 legendary heads, and that can include universals as well as specific to the commander that you're working on. And for the most part, in Rise of Kingdoms, you typically need to max these commanders for them to be viable. But that's really about it when we talk about commanders in Rise of Kingdoms. You use the star level. The star level is also dependent upon the level itself, so it's all pretty interconnected. Well, Age of Empires Mobile took a different approach to this, and this different approach makes the game a little bit more challenging to figure out early on. But once you figure it out, the possibilities for these commanders is pretty endless. So let's jump into this. This is essentially the way that you would upgrade a commander based on the skills. However, in Age of Empires Mobile, this actually just gives you a buff depending upon the rank of your commander. But as you can see here, these medals, which are equivalent to the gold heads in Rise of Kingdoms, are what you use to get these different tiers up. Now, Rise of Kingdoms has star levels, but those are not the same as this. They are different. They have different mechanics. And typically you want to level these up as much as you can, but in Age of Empires Mobile, you really don't need to get to rank 5 to have your commander be viable in the field, which is a stark difference from Rise of Kingdoms. But that's not all. In Age of Empires Mobile, you also have your leveling mechanic, same as Rise of Kingdoms, but your talent tree is very, very different. So if we come in here, you'll notice that this game goes with a sequential talent tree. What that means is you actually have to go through and you have to unlock individual levels of different technologies and talents before you can move ahead to other levels of them. So if you have an early game commander, you may want to get the strength and numbers skill, but it will take you a fairly long time to get there. You have to go through and upgrade all of the other talents. Now, there are some talents you can pick up as you go, just same as Rise of Kingdoms, but the talent tree mechanics are, I think, a little bit more challenging to figure out, and there's a lot more diversity of talents that you can use for your commanders here. And like Rise of Kingdoms, we do have different talent trees depending upon the types of commanders. So if we go and look at, let's look at this guy, Darius the Great, you'll notice he has a different talent tree than some of the other commanders that we've been working on. Let's check YSG. He also has one. You'll notice this one's a different color. So each commander has different kinds of talent trees depending upon what types of commanders they are. The other thing that makes this game very different is going to be the skills themselves. In Rise of Kingdoms, your commanders have skills that apply to the unit type that they represent. For example, let's go over to Rise of Kingdoms. We have Flavius here. Flavius has skills that benefit infantry primarily. So here we go. He has a skill damage, which triggers there, and then he has his secondary skill, which benefits the unit type he represents. Age of Empires Mobile has taken a very different approach to how skills work, and personally, I'm a big fan of it. So if you come in here, what you'll notice is all of the skills can apply to just about any unit type that you have a commander representing. And if you don't like a skill that a commander has out of the gate, you can actually select other skills. You have a limited amount of options for each commander that are considered to be legendary skills to then pair with that commander. And you can do that and upgrade these using these special legendary skill medals, which is not available in Rise of Kingdoms. And unfortunately, this does seem to cost money in most scenarios. But this allows you to have a much wider flexibility when you're customizing and building out your different commander sets. And to play off this even further, one of the things you'll notice in Age of Empires Mobile is while commanders do specialize in different troop types, they can specialize in multiple troop types. So what you'll notice for Darius is he is strong for pikemen and for cavalry, which is a mechanic I wish Rise of Kingdoms would adopt because it allows such a wider variety in how you play. And in Age of Empires Mobile, you actually will run 3 commanders paired together instead of 2. In Rise of Kingdoms, you have 2 commanders, and I believe the talents only apply for your first commander there. But in Age of Empires Mobile, that's not quite how it works. You have 3 commanders, and I believe even then, your talents and all your configurations do apply. So here you go. You can see you still have 5 different marches, same as Rise of Kingdoms, but you have 3 different commanders, and you get buffs based upon which units and unit types are in that, and which commanders you have in there as well. So overall, these games are both very competitive and I've had so much fun playing both of them, and there's a lot to learn in both games. If you're coming from Rise of Kingdoms, let me know in the comment section. Are you going to give Age of Empires a chance? Personally, I've had a lot of fun playing the game, and if you haven't played either, definitely go check out both Rise of Kingdoms and Age of Empires Mobile. I hope that you've learned a lot through this video. If you have, drop a like on it and hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right hand corner, and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you all. Shappy out.